Thank you everyone for coming to our panel, What Goes Around in Community Management. Um, yeah, let's start with some introductions. I got three other wonderful ladies with me. I'm Janneke van Ooyen. I work at Crytek as community manager, mainly on the Game Hunt Showdown right now. And yeah, go ahead.
I'm Mina. I work for Black Forest Games as communications specialist. So I do community management, but also social media management, PR, and a bit of marketing.
I'm Bo. I am lead community manager at Frontier. We did Elite Dangerous a couple of years ago, and I joined when we launched Planet Coaster. Last year we did Jurassic World Evolution, and in 3 days we are launching Planet Zoo.
I'm Sarah. I work at SEGA on PR, but I did community for about 10 years, and I work on the Persona series, Yakuza, and a lot of Japanese games. Yes, yes, indeed, yes.
So I already hear like a lot of different titles, even though we're all working somewhat in community. I mean, obviously now more PR. How did you get where you are right now, and like a little bit of your story? Let's go with Sarah, because you're the odd one out. Like, what did you do?
I had a reasonably unconventional path in. I started in web design about 12 years ago, showing my age. And I did website banners, and I worked on Grand Theft Auto 4 for a creative agency, and from there managed to sort of bully my way into the games industry doing digital marketing. I sort of moved from marketing to community because I really wanted to be the voice for the fans that I'd been like shouting into the void as a fan for all these years, especially as a woman, and I'd never really felt heard particularly because it was such a new industry, community management. So I really pushed hard to get into that, and I worked across Sony First Party, Bethesda, where else have I worked? SEGA, Rocksteady. So I did it for about 10 years and loved it, but then felt like I wanted to take on a new challenge and made the slightly scary jump to leave and go into PR.
And how long have you been working in PR now?
Oh my goodness, 2 years.
Okay, so still fresh.
Still so old.
And Bo?
Yeah, so I didn't know community management was a thing at all. I was happily studying psychology in university, and then I had a guest lecture from a woman who was working in a hospital and working on serious games, and I was like, what? That's cool. Obviously, I played video games. I just didn't know people could actually work on video games at all. So I was like, okay, interesting. So I got an internship with her. And then sort of put two and two together and figured, hey, this industry is really cool. I want to work in there. Then went on to do media and communications as my master's and started looking at roles that would really fit me and my strengths, and came across a community manager role and thought, yes, this is me. So started at Crytek, and now I'm at Frontier.
Nice. And Mina?
I was originally going to be an event manager, but then a friend of mine started studying game development, and I was like, wait a second, you can study that? Can actually work in games? So I did that too. And then during university, everyone was like, I'm gonna start my own studio, and I don't need marketing or community or anything. If my game is good, it's just gonna sell itself. And I was so frustrated that I was like, yeah, no, I have to just go into that direction to just keep them all in line. So yeah, that's
Nice.
short way.
Yeah, I feel like most of our studies are like very different because I studied hotel management and art and technology, so also too. But I do think I think also for you, for especially like psychology, like things that you still use in community management.
Absolutely. It was actually quite a really interesting background to have, because it's all about people and how people communicate, how people think, why people react certain ways. It's actually really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, for me it was also like I did all of that. I knew I wanted to work in games, but I didn't really have a direct way in. So I started streaming, and through that I met people, and then I just like started working in the industry, and then yeah, here we are. Where's my thing? Yeah. So, community management, what is it exactly? Expectations versus reality. I'm sure we all seen the meme somewhere. A lot of times people don't really understand what we do as community managers. I even see it in my community sometimes when we do a live stream, like, what do you actually do for us? But as you can see, I mean, it's bit small, probably in the back as well. So like a lot of people don't really know what we do, but oftentimes, especially the smaller the company, the more roles we take on, especially you already mentioned it. So what exactly are tasks within your company that you do, or maybe differences also, for example, what you did in another company that you don't do now? Mina, for example, you already said you do a lot of different things. Like, what are some of the tasks you do for your company?
It super depends on the day, so I rarely can make a whole timeline roadmap kind of thing, because now that we also work with THQ Nordic, they obviously take over a lot of the responsibilities, especially for marketing campaigns. It's just the usual day-to-day stuff. It's keeping the Discord in line, swinging the ban hammer, doing all the social media stuff, lots of brainstorming, thinking what can we do to promote stuff better, what can we do some little games to activate the community, so all kinds of
different things. And for you, Bo, because do you guys have a social media manager specifically, or do you guys do that as well as community?
Yeah, no, we're kind of all generalists. So we have a bunch of people on two teams. So Elite Dangerous has its own dedicated community team because it's an online, ongoing space sim. And then we're on the planet side of things. We do Planet Coaster, Planet Zoo, the simulation management games. And we kind of have a very varied set of skills, and we do everything from social media to communication strategy to live streaming, forum management, events, everything. So yeah, very general. Yeah.
And for Sarah, it's probably different. I mean, I do assume, because like for me, even for us, like because originally we didn't have a social media manager, and now we do. So they do just the social media, and that's kind of off my plate. So I don't do that. Like I'll do it when he's, for example, not around, and like there's always like times where you back it up, or when you're at events, we do social media. For example, here I'll post that we're here. But for us, it's very like a bit more specialized. So like I focus personally more on like influencer relations. I do the live stream production. I go to events. But for you, Sarah, because for you, I think it's even more specialized, or like.
Yeah, I think the big difference I found moving from community, aside from actually really missing doing a lot of the events and meeting the fans and doing the cosplay photo shoots and all those things, especially with the Fallout community who would appear at these photo shoots in full power armor with little air conditioning units built into the helmets. And I'd be like, hi, have some water. That's all I can do. But now a lot of the PR work I do is seeing the games as early on as we can, sitting down and figuring out how we think it will review, if we think it will actually hit that review once we've been through production and patches, and then trying to create a PR campaign where we can address anything we know will be a problem. So Yakuza series, for example, the localization is like the biggest thing we want to push. But we can identify pretty early on by working with development to say, actually, some of this maybe won't work in France or Germany. How can we address that problem early on in our PR campaign? And I've really enjoyed that. That's been the nicest change to me from community, is being able to try and sort of predict what press will say and try and create a campaign where we can help get the message we want across without jeopardizing our integrity.
Yeah, and do you have more tasks now or less different tasks?
So much more.
Yeah?
I am also one person for the entire of our European Japanese games.
Okay,
so I probably do 90% PR, 10% community and events still, just because we released 16 games this year, so we don't really get a lot of downtime.
Yeah, that's because how big is your like overall, like how many community PR in the whole like world, I'd say?
In the world.
Because how many offices do you guys have that you work with, for example?
So yeah, we work with Koch Media as our distributors. So we have a PR in each territory who can specialize in that. Because much as I try, I've not learned 6 languages yet. So close. And then our team, because we are a satellite office for Atlas Japan, so there's Atlas Japan, there's Atlas America, and now in the past 2 years, we opened Atlas Europe. Once the European market got really into Japanese games, we realized the demand was there thanks to Persona 5. We are still 6 people for marketing, PR, distribution, and sales.
That's not a lot.
Yeah. It's like an indie company within a big publisher almost. It's a really weird mindset.
Okay, yeah, because like how big are your companies? You're in, I think, the smallest, like.
We're around 70 people right now.
Yeah, cozy. And how many in your team? Are you the only one that does community work or marketing, or?
We have 3 at THQ Nordic, 3 or 2 depending on the day, and 2 at Black Forest Games.
Okay, and for you in the total, well, you have then the two teams for the what you said for
Yeah.
Elite Dangerous and the Planet Coaster
Yeah.
and 2 games.
Yeah, so Frontier now is about 500 people. I think we're just over. And then the publishing team, that's where the community team sits in our company. It's about, I think, 45, 50 people perhaps.
Oh,
so that
wow.
includes everything from product marketing to monetization to creative services. And then we sit in that as well. And then the community team at the moment is 7 people, 3 on Elite, but they're hiring a 4th, so if you're interested. And 4 on Jurassic and Planet, yeah.
Nice. Okay. That's not the right button. Yeah. So working with community-driven development. Just a little bit, what is community-driven development? So it really depends, I guess, obviously, what game. I feel the AAA titles, yeah, you there, Sarah. It's a lot less likely that the community has influence on the games. I think it's also more with like online, like, you know, live products that are continuously, that we take community feedback. So for example, for a game, Hunt Showdown, we listen to the community, we take their like top voted like suggestions, and then we discuss that with the team to then obviously make changes to the game. But we also do sentiment, which means every week we take a look at what the people are saying, and then we bring that to the team. Because like, how does it work for your games or your studios? Like, how do you take community feedback, and how do you relay that to your team, Bo, for example?
It's actually like one of my favorite things to do is gathering the sentiment of the community and really seeing like what's playing that week, how can we react to that, how have our communication strategies made changes to the community sentiment as well. The most recent example was the Planet Zoo beta. So we had a beta for 2 weeks. And when it went live, it was quite a rough launch. A lot of people had problems. So immediately we were gathering all the feedback. We were in constant communication with QA and the developer team. And they were able to, you know, make a lot of fixes and got the game back up and running. And then the second piece was that a lot of people were upset about the online mode of franchise mode. And immediately the developers came to us and they were like, we're seeing this on the forums. Are you seeing this too? Yes. Okay. How can we react to this? What's the best possible solution? Maybe we should think of an offline mode. Okay. And immediately we were able to feed that back to the community and say, actually, you know what? We've listened to that. We want to react to that, so we're going to implement an offline mode as well for launch. So that's just one example of how it could work and how quickly it could work as well.
Nice. And then I'm actually curious, because if you're working on a bigger title where obviously more people are involved, different countries are involved, how hard is it that then if you see, for example, something pop up in a community, how do you react to that if you have not as much control over it?
Yeah. There's a fair amount of time explaining to developers that one comment on one forum is not the entire internet. Especially in different languages. They're like, Dave in France, he hates it, change it. I'm like, leave Dave alone, he's okay. Yeah. Especially, we find some of our challenges are with Japanese developers. There's a very different community attitude there and a very different way that fans give feedback. So for them, a lot of the Western feedback is very aggressive, it's very harsh, and they take it very personally. I've genuinely had to talk lovely Japanese devs off like proverbial ledges because 3 people on Resetera are upset about the skin of a bikini color in one character. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is 2 hours of my life. We had, one of the nice victories we had though is that the Yakuza Remastered collection that we've just released got relocalized because it was localized 6, 7 years ago, 8 years ago for Yakuza 3. And it was a very different climate then. The LGBTQ community was a lot more quiet. They weren't really recognized as much, especially in Japan. So when we came back to the game this time to localize it, we sat with the devs and we were like, here are 3 parts of the game that we don't think from community feedback are going to fit well in this current environment. And we really took a lot of time to educate them and show them what other game developers were doing. And ultimately, one of them got removed, and the other 2, we revisited the text and tried to understand what the difference was between a Japanese word being translated into English badly, because it was a bit of a rush job initially, and actually what it meant in the context. And I think that's the biggest challenge we have. One is a bigger publisher who has hundreds of stakeholders who have an opinion on everything, but also with working with Japanese developers who still need to understand a lot of Western sensitivities.
Yeah, that must be very different because the people are completely different. Yeah.
No one really complains in Japan. They just want skimpier outfits.
I mean, can we blame them? No, that actually reminds me because we also had some trouble with our localization where we had one word that translated in the word prostitute, and it was like, okay, that's not what that's supposed to say at all. And what is for you? How do you guys work with community-driven development at your company?
So for our current title, it is pretty different because we're remaking Destroy All Humans. So obviously a lot of the game is done there from back then. So we can't take that much feedback from the community. But since we, for example, remade the whole art style, we could listen to the community there when we released the first cutscene, for example. There are agents in the game where we go for a very comic art style, kind of, and the agents had very, very like pointy shoulders, which I loved, but the community hated that. They were like, that is way too much, so yeah, okay. Then we changed that, toned it down a little bit, and now they're happy, and I'm sad, but it's okay. That's how it goes sometimes. But for our previous title, Fade to Silence, that was also in early access for a while. There we obviously took a whole lot of community feedback and just, like previously mentioned, tell the team, hey, one comment does not mean does everyone thinks that way, but it can be tough. But.
And then I'm actually also curious how you guys deal with, for example, obviously the developers are making the game because it's their child and they want to make something that they want to make. But how do you deal with if you have a feature that technically would go against the game design, but everyone asks for it? Like, how do you deal with it in your team, for example, when you have to bring forward something that, you know, the community really wants this, but the development team has no interest? Like, how, for example, do you deal with stuff like that?
It's hard. I mean, as a community manager, you definitely have a very specific skill set of knowing how to talk to your community, building that relationship with them, and also knowing how to bring the feedback back to the development team. Because again, like what Sarah says, you don't want to get people to react to something that's actually really small. You're constantly filtering lots of streams of information, and it's all about, you know, learning what is actually the underlying issue and what should you actually be reacting to. If you can say no, we can't do it, I would just be honest with your community as much as possible. It really kind of depends on the relationship that you've built with them and how you know that they will react. And you only know that through doing it and learning from them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the filtering is probably what takes the most time, is filtering through what is an actual issue, like a game-breaking bug. I can't get through this door and finish the game. We had a problem in Arkham City when I worked at Rocksteady. We released some key art, and the fans said that Batman's ears were 2 inches too long in canon. And they went mental. There was hundreds. They were calling our office. They'd found like my mobile. They were calling. The art director was like, Sarah, we've got to change it. It's wrong. It's not Batman if his ears are 2 inches too longer. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is not a real problem. We have an actual problem with you can't turn this corner in level 3. And he's like, no, the ears must be fixed. We didn't fix them in the end, but I had to write this really long apologetic forum post. And I was like, thank you all for your feedback. You all mean so much to us. Everything you do, we read, but this is nonsense. Please stop calling and texting.
Yeah. Okay, well, that kind of goes a bit to... Thank you, yes.
So good.
The,
Thank you, yes.
the dark side of community management.
2 inches too long, 2 inches too long.
Yeah. Look at these beautiful stickers. Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, we love our jobs, but there's also a lot of things that we either have to learn or that we have to deal with that aren't so great. Just to give a little context, what those stick figures are representing, the reason I went for the coffee and being exhausted is because oftentimes, especially people that are new to working in community management, think that they have to be online 24/7. I mean, the community thinks that for sure, so that's when you start believing that you should do. No sleep, you have to fix the game. So I think that's a mistake that I think pretty much all of us have made at some point where it's the weekend and you really want to spend some time with your family, but you know, you got to be on Discord, you got to reply to some messages. And I mean,
just 5 minutes, just
exactly.
5 minutes.
Just this email, tweeting. So yeah, that's something I think. I mean, I can't believe if there's any one of us that says I never done that. I'm good with my time off. So I think that is something that people should definitely remember. Like, if you go in community management, make sure that you know that you also still have to like calm down. And then especially if we have the second one, sometimes people are not so nice and they get really upset. I don't know if anyone has a great example. I mean, you already just said the ears, but what are some of the things that you have to deal with that you wished or dealt different with? Anyone has a good story?
I just remember my first day, like my first
My career.
So bad. No, like at the moment I'm very happy. Like we're the Planet community, because it's a lovely game. It's very positive and it's very creative, so it tends to draw a lot less negative attention. But previously being on more of a shooter genre, like my first day was just the second they found out I was a woman. It was just like, oh, I want to do this to you and your mom, and like, oh. And I was just sat there and I was like, okay. I wasn't ready for this. No one told me this was going to happen. Why? I'm nice. So that's definitely something that you, like over time, you learn to sort of build a shield between you and the community, and you start taking things a lot less personally. Definitely now that I'm in a position where I actually hire people as well, it's one of the first things I try to teach and pass on is like, don't dwell on that. Do not read the YouTube comments when you've done a live stream. Don't do it. And it's become like a really important thing to talk about, your mental health. Yeah. Definitely shutting down, removing notifications from your phone, setting those boundaries for yourself. The second you step out of the office, don't read your email unless you're launching a game or something important is obviously happening. Then yes, that's expected of you. But if it's just a normal day, don't do it.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, especially also for us sometimes, because we had some groundbreaking bugs lately, and that was not so great. So it's always really hard to stay positive sometimes, and especially because that's the thing I think a lot of people don't always understand. Like they all they see is, for example, when we post a post on social media, they think, why are you not fixing the game? Because you can post on social media. But it's oftentimes another person. The community managers don't fix the game. As much as I wish I could do that, I would totally code your game. Can't promise that I break more though. But I think it's definitely good that people realize that, we are also people, and as much as we want to help you every time of the day, sometimes I also need to eat and sleep.
I think the problem sometimes from a community perspective is that you, especially with a forward-facing role that does live streams and is active on social, you become sort of the personification of the thing that they don't like. Yeah. So it can become really personal. And I mean, I've had many meltdowns where I was like reading Reddit at night and going, oh my God, they hate me. Why? And it's, you learn not to do that after time, but it's character building, I guess.
Yeah. I always try and tell myself it's just misguided enthusiasm for the game you work on. You're not rubbish and terrible and the worst person on the planet. They just think your game is rubbish and terrible and the worst thing on the planet.
Which sometimes feels just as bad.
Yeah, I think there's enough horror stories. Like, I could talk for hours. I've had death threats. I've had police rounds to my house before. I've had some pretty bad stuff. But I think the biggest lesson I learned is that, like, the older I got and the longer I've done it before, that it's not that I genuinely haven't done anything wrong. It's just they're frustrated, and it's looking at the systems and where we could have helped them before it got to death threats. Is it that our forums aren't being moderated? Is it that our Twitter feed is talking about promotions when there are press covering the fact that our game is unplayable past chapter 3? It's trying to take a step back from what the offensive things that are being hurled at you is and going, okay, there were several steps before they hated me. How could I have stopped this happening, and how could our company maybe prevent this happening again?
Yeah, because that's also a good example. Like, what are personal ways that you deal with it? Besides, like, do you have something if you, experience negativity from your community or just in general when things are not going right? Like, how do you personally deal with it? Like,
I got super lucky so far. I've
Must have been nice.
I've never gotten any death threats or anything. I'd like to think it's because I'm doing a good job, so that I'm fostering very positive.
What are you implying?
No.
Okay, pedals over, guys.
And now you broke a phone.
It wasn't my phone. I did. It's not mine.
No. I mean, before this company, I worked a lot with mobile games, and obviously there was a shit ton of toxicity in there. But we were mostly anonymous because we didn't have we had forums, but we weren't as up and personal with people. So there was toxicity, but it was never directed at us directly. It was always just about the game. So it was pretty easy to come down from that. And even right now, I don't know, our communities are pretty chill. But I was like, when you said everyone was like, oh my God, she's a woman, I was terrified of my first live stream. And then afterwards, I was like, I shouldn't read it. I shouldn't read the chat. I shouldn't do it. But then I did it, and there was not a single comment either about me being a woman or about my looks, which I totally expected. And since then, it's kind of been fine.
The world is a better place.
And,
I never had that. I mean, I must say, I think it helps because coming from a streamer background, I'm already used to that, and it's bad that you have to be used to something like that because it shouldn't be like that. But it's just like, okay, you know, you just shrug it off or you laugh at it because, you know, what else are you gonna do? It's no point. But yeah, luckily that helped for me for live streams. I didn't like, oh no, what are they gonna say? Because I know they're gonna say bad stuff anyway. But yeah, I think especially that's why I'm really happy that we got like 4 women on this panel. You know, all of us, exactly. But it's not just all bad. There's also great memories. I really like this picture. I don't know. Thank you, Google. No. But yeah, some good memories. Obviously, you already had a great story that you wanted to tell, Bo, so go ahead. You were dying.
I get to humble brag.
You're gonna sit comfy.
Yes. So, for Jurassic World Evolution, I got to interview Jeff Goldblum. That was so nice. Yeah, that was honestly that's one of my favorite memories for sure. Just getting to meet him. We were in an offsite studio in London, actually where they filmed The Apprentice. I don't know if anyone watches that here. I just realized we're in Germany. But we were there, and then I was sort of watching the screen, and then someone tapped me and was like, Bo, Jeff's here. And I turned around, and he was there, and then he was like introducing himself to everyone. He went to me, and I was like, are you Bo? I was like, yes, hi, Jeff, that's me. And he just he put his thumb on like my chin like this, and he was like, darling, that chin's gonna make you famous. And I was like, great, thanks, Jeff, lovely. So yeah, so he was doing like little icebreakers with everyone, and yeah, it was a really weird day. And I didn't realize it until afterwards that I got to interview Jeff Goldblum. And then I sort of fell apart and went, oh my God, that just happened.
And he touched my chin.
He touched my chin. Never
Famous
watched it again.
chin.
Yeah. So it was really good. And then there's lots of other stuff like raising money with your community, hiring really amazing talent, launching really cool games. Yeah, there's just loads. More good than bad. Way more good than bad. Yeah.
Luckily. And for you, Sarah?
Yeah, there's lots of them. My favorite memory is probably actually one of my most stressful memories. That's probably why I like it a lot. For Arkham City, we went to Vegas to do this GameStop Managers Conference where they have all the managers from the branches sit there. And we were going really big with the marketing spend in it. And we're like, we're going to do like Arkham's prison breakout on the stage. There's going to be people jumping on trampolines in Arkham costumes. It's going to be amazing. And all you have to do, Sarah, is stand on the stage and do a 100-hit combo as Batman. That's fine. I was like, okay, I can do that, that's fine. So we went there, and we're doing the rehearsals, and I look over, and the Batmobile from Batman Forever's in the corner. And I'm like, what is the Batmobile doing here? They're like, oh, Mark's gonna drive it. I'm like, okay. Mark Hamill? Yeah, Mark Hamill's gonna drive the Batmobile on stage while you're playing, and then he's gonna run around you dressed as a Joker. And I was like, oh, okay. Have a little lie down. But then it became this cacophony of mistakes where we did all the rehearsals and didn't get to meet Mark beforehand. Like, he's just going to appear. He's Mark Hamill. It's what he does. And we're backstage, and the people on like trampolines are jumping around. There's 500 people in the crowd. And this woman runs up to me and she says, Sarah, are you here for Batman? I'm like, yeah, Mark's in the car. We're ready. We're going to drive onto the stage, and then he's going to jump out, do his Joker thing, and we'll play. And she goes, no, you haven't passed the fire test, so you can't drive it. And we're like, oh, okay. But it has to come onto the stage. It's part of our thing. So myself and my manager pushed the Batmobile with Mark Hamill in it, waving out the window, all the way from that bar, all the way up here onto the stage. And I just sort of opened the door for him and was like, Mark? And I had to sort of shuffle off with my controller. And then he's amazing. He just jumped out. And, like, I can't do an impression, but instantly had that Joker voice on, and I'm trying to do these combos, and he's behind me waving his arms, and he's punching the back of my head, and he's just sort of constantly trying to like distract me, and I got to 99 and I failed on the last move, and the entire crowd was like, no! But afterwards I was like, nobody knows what we went through apart from watching us all go hi, 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 just pushing this car on. So that's probably my favorite, most bizarre memory in the industry.
Wow, I'm sorry, I can't top that. I was saying, like, the nicest moment is when I met our community and, you know, we had pizzas and, you know, cola together, but I wasn't nice. No, but what are some of your...
I also don't have any famous, cool stories or anything. It's just, I was also going to say, like, every time we go to conventions and see people actually playing the game, community members just enjoying themselves, because you usually don't see when people consume your product, but at every convention you show it, you get to see how they react when they play. And especially with Destroy All Humans, where I know the first mission that we've been showing by heart, I know, like, I can just talk over it the whole time, and just oh, now this joke is coming. Oh, they laughed, and they laughed. Yes, yes, yes. And it's just, yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah, I mean, for me, we would do the same. Like, we did some community meetups at Gamescom, at TwitchCon EU. We had people that we actually got a moderation team that helps us. Yeah. Clap for a moderator. That help us for free with the Discord, but in exchange for that, we wanted to do something extra. So, like, we take them to conventions, and they came to our studio. So it was really nice to meet those people that have been, like, helping us and supporting our game. So I think that for me is always, like, just to see, like, the people behind the names, because obviously it's an avatar. You don't see who the people actually are, and then it's like, oh my God, you're like Golden Boy 50. I don't know, that was the most random name I just came up with.
That's me!
Yeah, it was so nice to see you. But yeah, I don't know, I think that's just like, that's makes you realize, like, this is why I do it for, because I love interacting with people, and I love making people happy, and I love trying to fix issues even though people are not always happy, then actually they can understand it and are actually happy again. So it's just like to see the passion, because, like, all of us love video games, and even though there are sometimes times, especially when you're a woman, where it's like, oh, you just played The Sims. Yeah, I love The Sims, besides all the other 50 games that I also like, so I'm sorry I'm not always playing my own game. To just share the same passion with everyone, which is video games. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think when I first got into community management, I got really bummed out because you'd be so far in the weeds, and all you're doing is you're reading the negative and you're feeding it back and you're trying to get it fixed. So you can spend 6 months behind a desk just sort of grinding away to try and help this product be the best it can, and then you come to these events and there are people in the costumes and they're queuing, and you're like, oh my God, this is exactly why I've done all this. And I think every time I see anybody, especially for our games, like in the cosplay, and I saw 5 Persona cosplayers before, I just ran up to them and gave them a hug, and I was like, thank you, what you're doing is why I have my job, and what you're doing is why our company can keep going. And I can't ever thank fans enough for that, regardless of, like, which is why sometimes we do the crazy hours without meaning to, but I think that's still the reason that community management is probably my favorite profession I've had.
Yeah.
We miss you. Come back.
Yeah, never.
Elite Dangerous needs a new...
Oh yeah, hi.
So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for us. So we can do some questions if people are interested in knowing something. I don't know how the questions here work. If you want my microphone, I'll happily throw it at you. Oh, no, he has a microphone.
Yeah. Any questions?
Anyone?
Don't be shy.
No?
I have a question for you, Bo.
Oh. Well, you can ask it.
Hello.
We have someone. Yeah.
Oh, no, question. I'll ask you after that.
Audience first.
I see how it is.
Hi. I had a question about, like, basically your company policies, or more rather than what we talked about mental health and how negativity is influencing, of course, your work life and your private life as well. So what is your company actually, like, trying to achieve that your mental health is, like, secured, basically? Or is there any, like, policy that you have to follow in your companies that are, like, ensuring that you have a quality of, like, your work and free time, basically?
Well, I mean, I think it's a lot of companies, you know, I think that really goes down to, for example, crunch. I know that's a very controversial topic, and sometimes it will happen. But for example, for our company, they still try to obviously keep it to a minimum. And if we do have to work late, they offer, for example, free food. So just that we can sort of like balance it out. So even sometimes, yes, you know, we'll have to work more, which is outside of our normal work hours. They do try to make, you know, make it a comfortable way, and we still get like the time back. So that is, I guess, most of our way dealing it. I don't know how it is for your companies.
So we don't have any specific policies in place yet, but we're also a pretty small company, and everyone is just really chill about it. So if you're like, hey, I'm really feeling just not sick, but mentally drained and done, then it's like, yeah, okay, take a sick day, it's fine. So yeah.
We have a mental health policy. It's all about making sure that people are aware that things are in place to help them. It kind of depends on your line manager, how it's enforced. So, you know, you have to make sure that you are able to flag what's going on. It's their responsibility to make sure that they're checking in on people if they're off sick for a long time or if they're clearly not doing well. HR also tracks, you know, your not hours, but if you have too many sick days, for example, they'll check in with you. They offer things like yoga, meditation, we had mental health awareness week as well. So it's just about having it be a topic in your company. I think that's the most important part. Yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty much the same. We just had a mental health week, and we did all sorts of activities, and there were some talks and things. SEGA's been pretty good because we're a Japanese-led company, and Japan has got some different attitudes towards work. The European and American branches, we do mental health days you can take where you're like, it's just too much, I'm just going to log off for a day, and they don't take it as a sick day. We do a lot of working from home, so I've been traveling this weekend, so if I want to log on from home on Monday so I can catch up on my sleep, they're very good about that, as long as you're not like, I'm doing it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because YOLO. I think it's the same sort of system. Our line manager is, I think about 6 months ago, I had to talk to mine. I said, look, I'm just really struggling. It's been a bit much. I've done 6 conventions. I'm at airports more than I'm at home. I need, please help. And they took me off some projects, and they gave me like a couple of days in lieu for the conventions I'd worked. And I think it's just, like you say, cultivating that office culture, being open and honest and not being ashamed about it. And it's very different to what it was 5 or 6 years ago, and it's definitely much, much better.
Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Anyone else? Another question? No? Well, then, I think that was it. Thank you so much for joining us for the panel, and also thank you, Sarah, Bo, and Mina, for coming. I hope you all have a good rest of your convention.
Thank you for hosting.
Thank you.
Amazing. I can't pronounce your name.